Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show presented by our friends over at FanDuel. Go check them out for the latest in your sporting bets odds over at FanDuel. We got a great show for you guys tonight. We got a ton to talk about. Obviously, our much anticipated schedule preview and prediction is going to happen today. Me and Jordan are going to have a record prediction for our Clemson Tigers as we exit fall camp and head into game prep week. We're going to talk about a player recently getting arrested and suspended from the team. We are going to talk about all of this NFL players returning to college football nonsense, all of that and more coming up in tonight's episode. If you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. Help us out. Also, hit that like button. Helps us out on these live videos, helps grow the channel, bring it out to more people, bring more people in, and further the discussion right here on Clemson at the Voice of College Football. Again, thank you to our channel sponsor, FanDuel. And with all of that said, and without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on my co-host, Jordan Bowman. What's up, brother? How you doing tonight?
Hey, man. Glad to be here. We're finally here. I know that everybody that's been listening has been wondering, when are we going to do the schedule prediction? When are we going to, finally predict Clemson's season? Everybody's been trying to, kind of pry it out of us, pull it out of us. It's like, right. Man, what do you guys think they're going to do this year? I mean, because we've been talking all off season about just everything from camp, from spring all the way through fall camp, and all the storylines, all the things we have concerns about, all the things we think are positive. But it's finally here. College football is being played this Saturday. It's just it's really exciting, man. You can actually start to feel it for once.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. We are going to have college football games this Saturday, Jordan. Week 0. It's going to be crazy, man. I'm excited. Can't wait to sit around and watch college football on Saturday. It's going to be a great time. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to do the schedule prediction tonight. Got some difficult decisions to make with some games. But, man, it's going to be a ride. It's going to be fun. It's been a great week, but I couldn't be happier to finally be on the show here, ready to chop it up with you, talk a little Clemson football, and get this party started, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, R.I.P. Dolly Parton. That was crazy news today. I just wanted to throw that out there. Just gave a lot of people a lot of joy over the years. Great music, and just personality. I don't think there is a single person that disliked Dolly Parton. So I just wanted to mention that.
Not at all. Shout out to her. Thoughts and prayers to her family dealing with that. So. All right, guys, before we get started tonight, we're going to go ahead and give a quick shout out to the comment section. Borough CPA is in here, one of our channel members. Thank you so much for joining the show, brother. Appreciate you. We will talk basketball at the end of the show. Obviously, the return of Dillon Hunter. Me and Jordan will discuss that in one of the segments tonight, so do not worry. John Sarian, one of the OGs, moderator here on the channel. Thank you so much for being in here, sir. We appreciate you. Arthur Moss in here. Thank you, sir. Another one of our great channel members. Good evening to you. Thanks for being in here. The Hard Take in here. Hey, what's up, man? Good to see you in here, all the way from across the pond. Appreciate you tuning in and checking it out. LS King's in here. Thank you so much for being in here, sir. We appreciate you. Trent is in here. Thanks for being in here, sir. Let's see. Air Mike, another one of our great channel members. Thank you so much for being in here, sir. Thank you for being a channel member and supporting the show in that way. Carl is in here. Thank you so much. KD is in here as well. I think that's everybody. Shout out to everybody in the comment section so far. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button while you're in here. It really helps us out, especially on these live videos. Jordan, how was your week?
It's pretty good. Going pretty good so far. Plenty busy as always. But really, it's just been, just counting down the days where we actually get to watch football. I've been keeping up with the NFL preseason. My Titans, they've looked kind of a mixed bag so far. Cam Ward has not had a good preseason, unfortunately, and neither has our rookie wide receiver Carnell Tate, who I still think I'm pretty high on, but he has no catches in 2 games, and it's not great. But other than that, we're doing good. Those of you that follow English Premier League soccer, Manchester City got off to a rough start initially, but they squeezed it out at the end with a win over Bournemouth to start off the year. So all things good, honestly, in my world as far as sports, and obviously Clemson is getting ready to kick off next week, so things are going good. How about you?
Absolutely. It's been a relatively busy week around here, but it's been good. Feeling a little bit better this week, so that's good. But yeah, man, just excited to get into this preview prediction. Excited about college football returning this weekend. Clemson will be kicking it off with LSU next weekend. It'll be game week. We'll be breaking it down. Man, the offseason is officially over. And we are into week 0 game week. So exciting times, man.
Very exciting times, man.
All right. We're going to go ahead and kick off the show tonight. We got a lot to discuss, a lot to talk about. So I will not belabor the point any further. Tonight, we're obviously going to kick off the show with the news of NFL players returning to college football. It's a wild time in college football right now, and we got to talk about it, Jordan. So,
yeah.
I mean, for those of you out there wondering what's happening, essentially what is going on is we have players that actively played in the NFL, played in preseason games, went through rookie minicamp, returning to college football. So imagine yourself as a college football player declaring for the NFL draft or running out of eligibility, going through an NFL training camp, going through preseason rookie minicamp, learning a new playbook, fighting for your professional life against NFL veterans, right? Then all of a sudden you're cut, right? But instead of looking for a practice squad or looking for another free agent opportunity within the NFL or looking to get picked up off of waivers, you just head back to college football, sign an NIL deal, and go play for whatever university. For the first time in history, people, that is not a hypothetical pie-in-the-sky scenario. That is currently happening in college football, thanks to a series of court battles that the NCAA obviously loses every single time. You have players that were active on an NFL roster just a week ago, now jumping back into college football. Basically,
Yep.
it's because of the NCAA's botched rule. They just enacted the 5 for 5. Those of you that don't know what it is, you get 5 years in college sports to play 5 years. No exceptions. There's no more medical waivers. There's no more red shirts. There's no more any sort of that. It's just you get 5 years to play 5 years, and essentially it starts on your 19th birthday or when you enroll into a university. That's your 5-year clock. It starts then. It goes for 5 years. Whether you play all 5 years or you play none of the 5 years, you get 5 years of eligibility. Okay? So now that we understand that, what happened was they did not grandfather in the 2022 recruiting class. And because of that, that recruiting class feels slighted. So they didn't retroactively grandfather in the high school class of 2022. They were the class that just graduated under the old rule of college football with 4 years of eligibility. So what happens? Obviously, those players feel slighted. Some of them realize their NFL careers are probably not working out how they thought they would. So what do? They go get lawyers. They sue the NCAA. They find friendly judges in whatever state they want to go play college football in. There's an injunction that happens, and lo and behold, they're back into college football, right? So because the courts have blocked the NCAA from shutting these players out, we are watching players that were actively playing preseason games just a week ago now join college football rosters. If you're a Clemson fan, you know some of the names. Daquan Wright comes to mind, tight end, most recently with the Cleveland Browns. Looks like he had his LSU path kind of locked up before he was even waived from the Cleveland Browns, if that tells you anything about how this stuff is working out. So basically under the state orders, if the athlete terminates their pro contract, returns professional compensation before taking a college snap, according to those judges, they're fully eligible to play. The NCAA can't do anything about it. The most unsurprising thing here is, guess what? Fans, some of the coaches, not happy about it, right? Not happy about players that declared for the NFL draft, signed with agents, signed free agent or regular contracts within the NFL, didn't work out. Now they're coming back to college football. Not a fan of it, right? And then there's a roster constraint when you think about college football, Jordan. I think a lot of people aren't realizing that college football rosters are locked in at 105. No more than 105 on your roster. So what happens when you're at 105 and you want to take two of these players from the NFL? What do you think happens, Jordan?
Somebody's got to go.
Somebody's got to go, right? So somebody who went through spring practice, grinded through off-season strength and conditioning, now made it all the way to fall camp. Now they're cut. Literally 4 days before the season starts because an NFL player didn't make it, washed out, and now wants to come back to college football. This was not the spirit of the 5 for 5 rule. This is not what it was supposed to be. But again, here we are with endless court cases, endless suits, and friendly judges in certain states that are just hijacking college football. So there's people taking it both ways, right? Some people are like, oh, well, the 2022 class, it's not fair for them. They're getting what they deserve. And some people think that this is just yet another blow to the sport of college football and kind of maybe a final nail in the coffin of this is just a professional league at this point. Jordan, your thoughts on the situation?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it really is just a question of, do we care about competitive integrity when it comes to football? And I know people are going to laugh at that. It's a college football competitive integrity when you got teams like with $45 million rosters and stuff. Like, yeah, I get it. There's the haves and the have-nots, and there's certainly a very large wealth and talent disparity in college football that's really driven by factors that are out of most schools' control. But at the same time, you know, when we're talking about college athletics, and we're talking about the importance of making sure there is at least a separation between the collegiate level and the professional level, even with with player compensation and all of that. I mean, having guys that are off to the NFL, signing NFL contracts on NFL rosters, playing in NFL preseason games, coming back to the sport, for obvious reasons, it rings alarm bells. And I care about that from that standpoint. It's like I don't want professional football players deciding, okay, I'm not cutting it in the NFL right now, so I'm gonna go back to school for another year and play, even though I've already spent months in a NFL with an NFL training facility, working with NFL coaches and all that. I am a professional by all definitions of the word. And now I'm going to play with at least semi-amateur athletes. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It obviously doesn't sit right with me. But at the same time, I think honestly, more importantly, is the stuff that you mentioned about the roster constraints. And you mentioned the guys that are already on the roster, but I think the biggest concern is what that means for high school athletes, the prospective high school athletes, if they're having to compete for roster spots with guys that are 24 years old and have signed NFL contracts. I mean, in a system like that, what coach is going to want to take a high school kid that they know they're going to have to develop for 2-3+ years, and especially with the existence of the transfer portal, not knowing if you're even going to be able to keep that player, when I could just I can get this guy that's I know is an NFL caliber football player for a year or two, and maybe in certain instances. I know that I'm going to get a NFL professional quality football player on my roster for that that allotted amount of time. I just, from a pure pragmatic standpoint, why would any coach choose a high school kid over that? And so obviously that limits the opportunities for high school kids, because they already have to compete with other collegiate athletes that are in the transfer portal that they haven't made the transition to professional, but they've left the school that they're currently at, and they're going and transferring to other places. So I mean, that's already put a constraint on the opportunities for high school kids, and now now they got to compete with professionals. It just the whole thing is screwy, and obviously the big examples, especially in Clemson's case, at least the most pressing examples are, like you mentioned, Daquan Wright, who's set to sign with LSU, and also Xavier Harris. So it's like, what are you going to do when LSU has I mean, they already have a really good starting tight end. I don't know why they felt like they needed another one, but I don't know. It is what it is.
That's another thing. How do you feel if you're that guy?
Yeah. I mean, Trey Green is no slouch, but now he's going to have to he's competing with a professional football player. It just doesn't sit right with me. And Xavier Harris as well, on the defensive line. So it's like, how does that? I don't know how that meshes in the locker room, and it is, especially in that case, in those two cases, because both players had documented grievances with the head coach, because obviously he coached them at Ole Miss. Yep. So this whole thing has been a mess. I did want to mention that the SEC, in the time, since all of this has come out today, they've made a formal declaration that they will be, banning or putting a rule against players that have signed or have signed NFL or professional contracts to to play in the league. I don't know how enforceable that's going to be. They've come to the decision. I think that's about the best they can do right now with.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing, Jordan. Like, it's already a rule.
Mm-hmm.
It's already against the rules to come back once you declare for the NFL draft and sign with an agent. That's already an NCAA rule. The problem with college football right now, we've talked about it before, there are no rules.
Yep.
I mean, there's a rule book with a bunch of rules in it. None of them are enforceable. 0 of them are enforceable. So the SEC can come out and make their own rule, just like the NCAA already has a rule. Guess what that's going to lead to? Lawsuit, antitrust lawsuit, lawyers, judges, and the SEC being told you can't enforce that rule. It's exactly what will happen.
Well, and I think it'll happen. I will say, at least at the conference level, I do think there may be less incentive for schools to try to sue or litigate, or players at least to litigate their way into skirting that rule, because I do think that conferences in general have just a little bit more swing than the NCAA as a whole. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to do something that the NCAA likes, but it's another thing to piss off your other your fellow member universities, and your conference that you actively compete in, and have to interact with and play against and all of those things. We kind
of saw that with the whole Texas Tech Brendan Sorsby thing. The Big 12 and its members were very unhappy, and we saw how it ended.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there is some merit to the peer pressure standpoint of that. If enough of the SEC is like, this is total BS, I think that would at least make some schools hesitant to try and pull that move. Ultimately, I don't know if that's going to completely deter it, but I do think there is a little bit more sway there. So I mean, my hope is this statement and this announcement puts enough pressure, kind of like you mentioned. I think the Brendan Sorsby example is a really good one. Enough pressure to say, okay, we probably could, litigate our way into getting what we want, but is it worth the negative PR? Is it worth, souring our relationships with our other member institutions for a depth piece at defensive line and a backup tight end? I don't know. I don't know if it's worth all that. And I'm just using LSU as an example. They're not the only one that's had that's done this in the last week. But
no, Texas, Indiana, there's other players out there.
But LSU is just the biggest example, and obviously Lane Kiffin being attached to it, and it's going to draw the most attention. So I'm just using them as an example, especially since Clemson is about to play them next weekend. So it's one of those things where, I mean, you have to hope that, I think Greg Sankey has, I don't praise Greg Sankey for much, but I at least commend that he's putting some sort of pressure and having some sort of backbone. I wonder, like, if this was happening in the ACC now. The ACC obviously does not have as much NFL talent to pull from, and so like I don't think like this would be a 1-to-1 thing. But honestly, if this was happening in the ACC to the degree that it's happening in the SEC, would Jim Phillips, apply the same sort of pressure? Maybe they are. I think it was announced a little bit earlier that the ACC is coming together to potentially, make their own rule preemptively. So we'll see. But like, say if Miami was trying to pull a player off of an NFL preseason roster and just get them back in the fold because, hey, this was a player in the 2022 class or whatever, would the ACC have enough backbone to say, no, we're putting a stop to that now. We're not even gonna entertain it. I don't know. And not to make it a comparison thing of the SEC versus ACC, but we're as Clemson podcasters, media, whatever you want to call us, we're always thinking about Clemson and their position within the ACC, and we've already sued to at least get out of grant of rights and things like that. So the potential exit for Clemson has always been something in the back of everybody's mind and all that. So, and all, when you're talking about that, you have to remind yourself of all of the grievances that Clemson has had in the past. So you have to wonder just whether the ACC would yet again, stumble upon itself like it has in years past, and especially on key issues that affect their member institution, especially the ones that are most competitive in the sport of football. So I don't know. I say all that to say that LSU, I think ultimately, I'm hoping will kind of take the hint, and other programs within the conference and other programs in college football will take the hint. Hey, this is not going to be met with timidness. No, this is going to be, we're going to actively litigate against this, or not, maybe not litigate, but make rules against this and take a hard stance against this. So we'll see what happens in the coming days. Whether, I could totally see a scenario where LSU just says, screw you, we're going to do it anyway. But I could also see one where it's like, it's probably not worth the hassle. You should probably just go ahead and stay in the NFL. It's not worth it. We're good with what we got.
Yeah. I really hope that's the way it goes. But regardless, these next couple days, this next week, I guess, is going to be very pivotal in this kind of situation. If one of these guys step on the field, though, I think that forever blurs the lines between the NFL and college football.
Yep.
And that's kind of if one of these guys steps on the field, I think that's kind of a point of no return. You don't put the toothpaste back in the tube. That's a can of worms. Whatever analogy you want to use for it, I think it would be extremely harmful and detrimental to college football if one of these guys step on the field. You made your decision. I'm sorry the NFL is not working out the way that you thought it was going to. I'm sorry that every class after you gets an additional year that you may or may not have gotten. But somebody's got to be the last class that doesn't get the 5 for 5, right? Somebody's got to be that class that gets left out. So, as much as I feel for these guys and their possible football careers ending because the NFL may not be working out for them, the answer is not to allow them back into college football for a 5th year just because they want to play. That's not a good enough reason. Just because it sucks for them is not a good enough reason to allow this sort of egregious thing to happen. College football cannot allow this. I hope that every conference stands up, makes their own rule, and takes a hard stand for their member institutions when it comes to this happening. And I hope none of these guys take the field. Not because I have any sort of grievance with any of these players or any of the schools trying to bring them on. It's just you cannot allow something like that to happen in this world of college football. All right, guys, make sure you're checking out Clemson live on all your favorite audio streaming platforms, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, wherever you get your podcast from. Search Clemson Live. Whether you're on a long drive, working out in the gym, on a long run, whenever you like to consume podcasts, or if you prefer to listen to videos in long-form videos in a podcast format, we have them for you on all your favorite audio streaming platforms. All you got to do is search Clemson Live, rate, review, subscribe. All of our videos are over there. Our long-form content, much like this live show, is going to be over there on the audio streaming platforms. All the chopped up videos that we do throughout the week will be on there in podcast form. So make sure you guys are checking out Clemson Live on all your favorite audio streaming platforms. Again, rate, review, subscribe. We appreciate your support and your help with that.
Okay.
Back.
We're back. That was weird. Camera likes to be funny sometimes.
All good.
But now my lighting sucks. So.
And Hart thinks that you hit the portal. Kiffin offered him a bag.
Yep, he did. I'm an LSU podcaster now. John showed up. John Blau. He showed up to my house with $2 million.
Suitcase of money. They're trying to lure Jordan away.
Oh goodness. Now my lighting sucks, but we'll let it rock.
We'll rock through it. All right, let's keep it going tonight, guys. Obviously, not great news for the Clemson Tigers came this past weekend, Sunday specifically, with an arrest. None other than along the defensive line. We just spent all last show, Jordan, talking about the defensive tackle room specifically and how thin the depth was there and how much we were worried about that room and who was going to step up into that rotation. Really, when you think about defensive tackle, there need to be 4 guys that you can trust to go out there and play meaningful snaps for you because you need a rotation at that defensive tackle position. One of those guys was supposed to be 4th-year guy, Vic Burley, a highly recruited guy out of high school, a guy that we've been waiting for years to kind of realize that potential that he came into Clemson with. He's been riddled with injuries since he's been to Clemson. His career has not gone like anyone thought it was going to when he first came into Clemson. And that took another hit. Early Saturday morning, Clemson University Police Department arrest Vic Burley on public disorderly conduct. Essentially, he was found at around 2:15 a.m. Saturday on campus by campus police in his vehicle, sleeping with the engine running. And there were some things found in his vehicle. I think a vape with a certain substance in it. They had the smell of alcohol. He was not driving, thankfully, but he was sleeping in his vehicle. He was subsequently arrested for disorderly conduct and released. Dabo Swinney obviously released a statement shortly after saying that he would be suspended indefinitely from the football team. Not kicked off the team, but suspended indefinitely. I'm sure that means he's got some work to do. He's got some things that he's going to have to accomplish and tasks that he will have to complete prior to getting back in good standings. And he expressed the staff's extreme disappointment in Vic Burley and kind of his decision-making. So, Jordan, your thoughts on the arrest and how this affects an already strained defensive tackle room that has lost several people this offseason to both injury and cancer. So yeah. It's a room that just seems to keep taking hits before the season even starts.
Yeah, no. Obviously sucks for this, the defensive tackle room. I don't think, obviously, long term for Vic Burley, I don't think it's going to affect him that much. Honestly, this is a fairly minor charge. They didn't get him with DUI. They might to, but disorderly conduct. That's misdemeanor. It's not going to be the end of the world. It's not going to be the end of his career.
Yeah.
And again, thankful that he wasn't driving. So that's the thing. But obviously, you're in the state of South Carolina. The laws regarding THC and then vape and all that like that. You can that can get a little hairy. So I mean, you were
for sure.
I mean, playing with fire there. It could have been worse. But it just is a really disappointing situation that he put himself in. Just because of obviously, he's going to his fourth year. He just got married. I don't think people realize that. He's a guy that has, he has a lot of life ahead of him. So, you don't want him to see him ruin his opportunity at playing football. This is a big year for him. It's year 4. I mean, he was in the 2023 class with Peter Woods and TJ Parker and Stephylon Green and all those guys that loaded defensive line class. I mean, AJ Hoffler, if you remember that name. But Vic Burley was arguably the highest ranked of any of them, depending on where you looked. And just it hasn't come together for him. Injured, tore his ACL his freshman year, basically shut him down. Rehab was successful, but physically he never really got to where he needed to be, so it wasn't really playable his second year, and obviously the third year. Now you're behind seasoned steveterans at that point, and Peter Woods and DeMonte Capehart, and other guys in that defensive tackle room that were, Stephylon Green, that were just, they had gotten ahead of you. You're like his peers. And so now, heading into year 4, this is his year to finally kind of break through. You don't have an obvious guy like standing in your way that's like, I'm not going to play ahead of him like he had his previous years. I mean, Amari Adams was a true freshman who flashed some, but beyond that, there weren't a lot of obvious guys. And with the departure of Stephylon Green, you had to go into the transfer portal to bring in guys. He had every opportunity this offseason to kind of really put something together and establish himself in the coach's mind that, hey, this is a guy we're going to be able to rely on. Like, he could have been a starter. And you need him this year, especially with the depth concerns. So it's really disappointing, to do this to your team, just a couple weeks before kickoff. I mean, that's very unfortunate. And you already don't have a long leash. He didn't have the strongest spring. And it was, and obviously his start to fall camp wasn't great either. But this news comes after he had his best, moments, obviously coming back from injury. And he had, this most recent scrimmage, Dabo Swinney, was very glowing about him, saying that he flashed multiple times throughout the scrimmage. So coming off of that, seems like maybe you're starting to put things together, and then boom, now you're suspended. And your status for the opener has certainly been very much in question, and beyond that. And now you have to work to get yourself back in good standing with the coaching staff and with the team. It's unfortunate. I hate it for him. Again, was he ever going to? I mean, if this didn't happen, did that mean he was due for some breakout season? I don't know. I have the evidence we've had so far doesn't suggest that was what was going to happen, but at the same time, he's a guy you need. You need to play this year. I mean, you don't have many other options. That's why you went and got Andy Berberija and Marcus Strong and those guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's a room that's already had significant loss this offseason. Courtney Kelly tearing his ACL, Heaven Brown Schuler with the Hodgkin's cancer treatment, right? And now you lose another one in Vic Burley for at least the foreseeable future. How long is it going to be? We don't really know. But it's not a good thing. Like, he was supposed to be a part of that kind of four defensive tackle rotation. You were counting on him to do that. He did receive some praise exiting that last scrimmage that Clemson did in fall camp, looking like he was ready to contribute to this team, and then just makes a dumb decision The circumstances around it, none of us know. Obviously he was drinking. Thankfully, he didn't decide to, put the car in drive and go driving around. That was a good decision from him. And luckily, he wasn't arrested on a DUI or anything like that. In the state of South Carolina, I think they could arrest him for a DUI, but obviously they just arrested him for disorderly conduct. Again, it's a misdemeanor. There was a weapon in the vehicle. No mention of whether it was on him or if it was just in the vehicle. Doesn't seem like that was a significant part of the arrest. So it looks like legally he's looking in good shape. But
Yep.
Dabo Swinney's obviously going to have a series of things that he is going to have to work through in order to get back in good standing. And frankly, it's a guy that Dabo Swinney has been frustrated with in the past for quite some time, which is him not being as dedicated and doing the things necessary that he needs to be doing in order to realize his talent. So very disappointing. I don't think this is the end of his career at Clemson, but this is certainly yet another bump in the road for Vic Burley and a long line of speed bumps for him. And I don't know if he's ever going to really turn the corner at Clemson. We'll see. He's got an opportunity this year. He's already put a negative mark on it, but we'll see if he can recover, get through this, get back to the team, and at least be a contributor along the defensive tackle position this season.
Yeah. We obviously hope that, they are, this comes out, he comes out on the other side of this, pretty much clean. Again, listen, he's a college kid. This is not something that where anybody should be clutching their pearls about. This is something that, if anybody's being honest with themselves, anybody that's been to college, this is pretty normal. This isn't anything out of the ordinary. It's just unfortunate. Just being a football player, knowing you got to know the risks when you're doing stuff like that. I mean, I want our players to live lives. They're not robots. You're in college. You're supposed to have fun. You're supposed to live a little, but just don't put yourself in situations like that. Do your best to keep yourself out of situations like that, because unfortunately you're a football player. You're one of the most visible students on campus. For that reason, anything you do is going to draw attention, and so that's just reality.
Yeah, it's magnified.
Yeah.
Nothing that doesn't go on every college campus across the country.
And especially the type of especially the vehicle he drives. I've seen it. It's pretty nice. It sticks out. It's got an SRT engine and everything. Yeah, it's something. So all that being said, you're gonna people are gonna notice when you do something. That's just you got to be better than that. So I'm not dunking on Vic Burley, and everything. I think he's a good kid. He's
a college kid. He made a mistake. The timing of it couldn't be worse for the team.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. He's going to have to do, whatever the Dabo Swinney and the rest of the coaching staff sees fit for him to do in order to get back in good standing. I hope he can turn this year into something. It's unfortunate, man. It really is.
Well, free Vic Burley until it's backwards.
Yeah, for sure. For stories like that and more, go check out the Voice of College Football website, vocfb.com. That's vocfb.com. We got a stable of writers over there, guys like us, fans of the game, guys trying to break into this college football media market. Go check it out, vocfb.com. Tons of stories over there, not just Clemson stories about college football as a whole, other teams. Our show schedules are over there, not only for this channel, but every channel under the Voice of College Football Network. all the stuff. It's basically a one-stop shop for all things Voice of College Football. And Mark Rogers did a great job getting it spun up, and there's a collection of talent over there. So I encourage everybody to go check it out, vocfb.com. That's vocfb.com.
It's very easy. It's in the description. You don't even have to type it in.
Yep, just go click it. Click it from the description. All right, Jordan. I think the time has come. What the fans have been waiting for, what everybody's been asking for I think well over a month now, because everybody's doing preview and predictions for schedules all across the country. Clemson's obviously one of those teams that people are doing it for. So here we are, man. The time has come. We are going to give our official game-by-game preview and prediction for the Clemson Tigers schedule in 2026. Hey, you guys in the comment section, real quick before we get started, hit that like button first and foremost if you have not already, and follow along with us. Tell us what you think game by game as we go through. Who's going to win? Who's going to lose? Key things that you think. Get into the chat section, because at the end of the show, me and Jordan are obviously going to get to you guys, get to your comments, get to your questions, and chop it up with you guys for a little bit at the end of the show. But Jordan, without further ado, let's go ahead and get it started. The Clemson schedule prediction. We all know what happened last season. The Clemson football team went 7-6. It was Dabo Swinney's worst record since I think 2010. It showed the regression that this program has gone through. We had 9 NFL draft picks off of that team. They were preseason top 5. They were picked to win the national championship by a lot of the national media landscape, and none of that was realized. There was a lot of underachieving for big-name talent on the team. There was a lot of not dealing with adversity well right out of the gate, and it just kind of spiraled into a season of extreme disappointment for the Clemson Tiger fans in 2025. 2026, turning the page, right? This was always supposed to be a rebuild year, a year of kind of transitioning from what you had, transitioning to kind of a new roster. But when you go 7-6, Jordan, that's really not afforded to you anymore.
Nope.
You kind of ate up all that cachet that you had last season with the 7-6, when everybody was expecting you to be back into the college football playoff and, potentially competing for a national championship. So heading into 2026, there's a mixture of high-end talent on this team, I think, and then some transition pieces, some new faces via the transfer portal. Some of them just new starters jumping into or stepping into much bigger roles within the team. Most namely, Christopher Vizina at quarterback. He's a fourth-year guy at Clemson, but he's a first-year starter. So what's that going to look like? New offensive coordinator, obviously, in Chad Morris. I think some people are kind of on both spectrums when it comes to the Clemson Tigers and the 2026 schedule. Some people think it's going to be somewhat of a bounce-back season for the Clemson Tigers. Dabo will start to right the ship. And some people think that it'll just be another example of what Clemson has regressed to. Where we fall, you guys will know by the end of this segment. Where you guys fall, let us know in the comments below. Jordan, your overall thoughts on kind of the season heading into 2026, the schedule and all that, before we get to breaking down game by game and giving our predictions.
Yeah, I think you summed it up really well. You mentioned just kind of how the tenor of this season has changed just because of the results of last year. We were talking in in the offseason heading into 2025 how this was a big year for Clemson, and because 2026 you're losing all those pieces. We might be having to have some conversations about a potential comeback down to earth moment, even if 2025 is a great year. And so this was always in the cards. There was always this understanding that, hey, you were building up to 2025, and 2026 was going to be like, okay, we got to kind of reset expectations. Can't really expect to, follow that up with another season like 2025. Like, there's going to be a lot of questions, and you're going to have some roster, questions to answer, and some depth to fill, and things like that. So we understood that, but when you're coming off of a 7-6 season, and 2025 didn't go how you want, now all of a sudden the sense of urgency is different, but now it's coupled with the understanding that we still lost all those players. Like, it wasn't like 2025 was like you just had a bunch of injuries and all of that, or guys just didn't play for whatever reason, or they transferred out. Like, no, you had those players, and they were NFL caliber players. 9 guys got drafted off of that 7-6 football team, so you still have to replace them. And so this season is really uncomfortable in a lot of ways, because it's like you don't feel like you have the high end talent at all the places that you felt like you did last year, but now you're expected to do better than what that disappointing team did. And so there's a lot of pressure. And like you said, you couple that with all of the changes that Dabo Swinney has made. Bringing back Chad Morris at offensive coordinator, kind of doubling down on in the family approach, because he also, promoted Taj Boyd to quarterbacks coach, Nolan Turner to safeties coach. So there's a lot of familiarity in the building. But also, you made changes to your strength and conditioning program, which I think has largely been a positive thing from everything that I've been able to gather. And I've been really excited to see how that pays dividends. You bring in a special teams coach from the NFL, thank God, for the first time ever. So, there are a lot of things that you like about what Clemson did this offseason, what Dabo did this offseason to kind of right the ship. But at the same time, you replaced the depth, the depth concerns, the lack of depth with question marks. So now you've gone from, okay, I don't know who's going to play at this spot, to I know who's going to play at this spot, but I don't know if he's any good. I don't know if he's going to, I don't know if he's going to be able to take that next step, if it's a guy that's already been in the program, or if it's been a transfer, which Dabo has taken, obviously the biggest transfer portal class of his tenure with 10 guys. So, you say all those things, and you have to come to the understanding that, you have to evaluate whether this team will actually improve on last season, and the understanding that you feel like they should, but also knowing that this has the potential to be, about the same. You don't really know with this group. So when you look at the schedule, look at how it plays out and shapes up, I don't think it's an overly difficult schedule, but there are some landmines, some really, really scary landmines that are kind of sprinkled in there. So like, I think it's a manageable schedule, but but with the concerns and, the question marks and the challenges that this particular Clemson team has to face, there's some very tricky spots that, ultimately are going to decide whether this team is, maybe an ACC caliber, ACC championship caliber team to, this is a 5 or 6 loss football team again, if not worse. I don't think they'll be worse than that, but we didn't think last year's team could go 7-6. So not in our wildest dreams. So this is going to be one of the more conflicted and one of the more interesting schedule predictions we've done, and probably the most interesting one in the 4 years we've been doing this show. This is the least certain I've ever been about a team, a Clemson, at least in a long time. So we'll see how this shakes out. I still really am not sure where I'm going to end up by the end of this, but we're going to find out.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've mulled over this schedule for quite some time. We've heard all the things from spring practice to summer and conditioning, with the addition of new coach Dennis Love, and how intense that strength and conditioning program was this summer, and the strides that were made. And then fall camp rolls around, and you're hearing some positive things out of there. You're hearing some negative things. It's kind of a mixed bag. And I've mulled over the schedule several times, and there's some games on here. There's some tougher games. There's some, not so tough games along this schedule. You made some notes, and we're going to see where this team lands. I think there's a path where Clemson gets it turned around, and could, if all things go correctly, maybe win as many as 10 games. And then there's probably a world where they just win 6 or 7 games again. So we'll see where we land on it, though. You guys let us know as we go game by game. But Jordan, let's go ahead and kick it off. Obviously, Clemson has the marquee matchup of Week 1, kicking off Week 1 of the college football season, September 5th at LSU, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. This is a blockbuster game, man. ESPN Game Day, College Game Day is going to be there. They'll be playing on ESPN or ABC standalone game, night game in Death Valley Junior. But with that said, it's an extremely tough place to play. It's one of the toughest environments in all of college football, regardless of whether they steal people's stadium names or not. This is going to be a really interesting game for a lot of reasons. One, Lane Kiffin, he always draws attention to whatever team he's coaching for, just the way that he carries himself. Two, they essentially have an entire new team. They brought in, 60 transfers? I don't know how many at this point. It's essentially an entire new team. They're bringing in NFL players. It's a crazy circus over there, which is par for the course for a Lane Kiffin-led team. And then Clemson. We already mentioned how last season went. Couldn't have gone worse. Well, I guess it could have gone worse, but it was a bad year, right? They brought in their own set of transfer portal, the biggest transfer portal class that Dabo Swinney's ever brought in, the only real transfer portal class that we've ever had in program history, retooled the entire back end of that defense, and brought in an explosive running back to kind of partner with Gideon Davison. Like any early season game, Jordan, I think this one comes down to execution, right? It's going to come down to early in-game execution. It's going to come down to, can Clemson weather that storm? Because they are going to walk into a hornet's nest. They're going to walk into the fire, dude. Like, that stadium is going to be jacked up. LSU fans are ready for this season to start. They're excited about Lane Kiffin. They've spent probably $50 million on this roster. They think it's going to be an instant success and an instant turnaround, and we're going to find out Week 1 if that's going to be the case. Clemson's going to be heading into a very, very hostile environment. How is new starter Christopher Vizina going to deal with that? That's going to be the thing. Does Clemson improve on third down conversions? Can they stay on schedule? Is the noise going to affect how they operate within the offense? You got a brand new offensive coordinator. You got a brand new starting quarterback. So what do you think about this game? What do you think the keys are to this game? What do you think it's going to come down to?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the things you mentioned, I think Clemson is going to have to win those battles. Third down obviously is going to be massive. Clemson was one of the worst teams in third down conversion last year in the ACC, and therefore one of the worst in the country. You got to be better. You got to run the football. I mean, it's a given. Shocker. But it really is important in this game. I mean, you're breaking in a new starter that, I don't know. You don't know how he's going to perform under the lights. His one start was in the comforts of his own home crowd, and he lost that game. So now his first real start as the full-time starter is in one of the toughest environments in the entire sport. You don't know how he's going to, respond to it. You got to help him out. The supporting cast has to help him out. This offensive line has to block and get some push in the run game. This LSU defensive line is talented, and they're pretty deep. But they, a lot of these guys those guys haven't played together. They could be potentially starting two true freshmen at defensive tackle. So, I mean, you got to establish yourself. I mean, this is what you brought in Matt Luke to do as offensive line coach. You got to start asserting yourself in these big games, especially on the line of scrimmage. It can't be a one-sided thing. You can't just be, a defensive line factory. You got to be just as physical and imposing on the offensive line. And I think you have the bodies to do it for the first time in a long time. But are they actually going to do it? Are they going to play cohesively as a line is the question. And beyond that, I think I do think Clemson has more advantages in this game than I think maybe some outsiders and obviously definitely LSU fans would be willing to give them credit for. I think Clemson has the better pass catchers in this game. And I honestly think there's a pretty significant difference in the quality between the receivers and tight ends. I think Clemson has the best skill talent in this game. Lean on that. That's one of the best parts of your team. You got to get your guys the opportunity. That was the biggest thing about the game last year that was so disappointing, was you just didn't really see guys get the opportunities in space. And LSU's defensive backs played well in that game, but there were guys open. I mean, it wasn't it wasn't like they were just completely blanketing Clemson's receivers. Obviously, Antonio Williams going down didn't help, but you still have a really good receiver room this year, and you also have two really good tight ends that can play in Christian Beneker and Olsen Patton Henry. So lean on that. Lean on the explosiveness that Chris Johnson Jr. can bring in the pass game as well. Like, those are things that help your young quarterback. And obviously, I don't want to spend too much time on the LSU game. We're going to do a full breakdown of this game next week and get position by position and all of that. But I don't, LSU, they've got questions themselves. That their transfer quarterback, Sam Leavitt, is coming off of an extremely disappointing year. One that ended because of injury, but he also was not playing that well when he was healthy. And they have also offensive line questions of their own. I don't think their receiver room is all that scary, to be honest with you. They got some guys that can play, but I mean, honestly, when you look at their depth chart, it looks like they have it feels like they have a room full of slot guys. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but especially with what Clemson has a defensive back, they have some pretty physically imposing defensive backs. I think that's a matchup you can win. I say you go and press those LSU wide receivers, dare Sam Leavitt to beat you over the top. And, and obviously you got to get after the quarterback. And so I think Clemson is, the line is what, LSU minus 9.5. I think Clemson can cover that.
Oh, yeah.
Am I going to pick them to win this game as it stands right now? No.
Right.
I'm not. But I do think that Clemson will be competitive in this football game. I'm picking Clemson to lose a tight one in Baton Rouge, but one that I don't think Clemson will come out of it feeling like, okay, we're not going to be a good team this year. It's over. I think this is going to be a competitive football game, but I see Clemson losing narrowly.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. For a lot of the reasons that you stated, third down efficiency is going to be huge in this game. Weathering that early storm of the crowd is going to be huge in this game. Christopher Vizina is going to have to be a leader on that field. But I do think there is advantages for Clemson in this game. You mentioned the wide receiver core. I think our defensive backs, albeit a backfield built out of the transfer portal, I think it's going to be a significant improvement from last year. I do think LSU wins this game ultimately. I think the home field advantage is just too much. But I do think this game is going to be closer than a lot of people think it's going to be. I do not think LSU wins by multiple scores, although I do think they ultimately win the game in the end. But this is going to be a close fourth quarter battle between these two teams. And I think LSU is just going to edge Clemson out by a small margin. But if you're a Clemson fan, I think you're going to exit this game knowing that, okay, I think we are headed back in a better direction. At least we're starting the season a little better than we did last year. Because exiting that LSU game last year, it was just doom and gloom. You could see it from the coaching staff. You could see it from the players. They didn't handle the adversity well. I don't think that'll be the case this year, but Clemson will again start the season 0-1 with a loss to LSU in 2026. All right, moving right along, Jordan. Week 2, September 12th versus Georgia Southern. Home opener for the Clemson Tigers. Not a lot to talk about here other than it is the home opener. You're coming out of an LSU game. It's a hard-fought game. It's probably a 4-quarter game. Probably a little banged up. Guys kind of nursing some soft tissue injuries. This is a game where you should dominate early and often. You should get a lot of rotational pieces in. You should empty the benches, particularly in the second half. Try to avoid any additional physical damage to your football team is really the key here. I think you have a field day with this secondary that's kind of rebuilt for Georgia Southern. I think you're able to run the football. I think you're able to kind of do whatever you want on offense. It's kind of a feel-good game after a hard-fought LSU game that you lost in week 1, and you will start the season 1-1. Your thoughts on the Georgia Southern game, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, definitely this has to be a game where, I mean, if you are coming off of a loss, I mean, you got to treat it as okay, we got to get it's got to be a confidence builder. And listen, the last year when you played a Sun Belt opponent after your opening game,
it didn't go well.
You got a little bit more than you were betting on.
Yeah.
So listen, I don't think this Georgia Southern team is quite as scary as Troy, and honestly, that Troy team wasn't that particularly scary ultimately, but that was just it was just one of those games, especially with the rain delay. But this has to be a tune-up game. Georgia, I mean, they have a first year coordinator on defense, and they were dead last in the Sun Belt last year. This is one of the worst defenses in the country. Will they be better? Probably not enough to compete with the talent that you have on offense. This has to be a game where, Chris Vezina especially really gets an opportunity to, build some rapport and just kind of build some confidence with his receivers. I mean, you want it to be a balanced effort, but I'd love to see, a high volume of, a good passing output in this game. Because you need your young quarterback or your fresh quarterback to build some confidence. Because this stretch coming up is ultimately, I feel like, one of the probably the most important stretch of the season. So you don't have a whole lot of games to get right and get comfortable with everything, and so you got to use these games as an opportunity to really get comfortable. And so, think Clemson wins this game for obviously. Georgia Southern may have some stuff up their sleeve. Clay Helton, he was a Power 4 coach. He was at USC. I mean, he's no slouch, and he's trying to rebuild a program, and they were solid. They were 7-6, not anything to write home about, but certainly not terrible. So in year 2, he's trying to kind of get another, or this isn't year 2 for him, but this is year 5. He's trying to turn the page and kind of take that next step at that program. So, they may have some things up their sleeve as far as the offense is concerned, but I don't expect this to be a very competitive game.
Yeah, no, I don't either. So Clemson starts the season 1-1. Moving right along, week 3, North Carolina. It's going to be a home game against North Carolina. This is a team in North Carolina that was bad last year. The Bill Belichick experiment at North Carolina has not worked yet. We'll see what year 2 under Bill Belichick looks like. But in recent history, I guess Clemson has kind of owned this series, right? They've gotten the better of North Carolina. This will be your first conference game. It'll kick off ACC play for the Clemson Tigers, give you a chance to get an early 1-0 start in ACC play if you can get it done. Red zone efficiency, obviously, is something that comes to mind, something that Clemson has struggled with in the past. UNC, they're kind of all over the place. I don't know. I never thought that the Bill Belichick experiment at North Carolina was going to work out. I didn't know that I thought it would go as bad as it did in year one. I don't think year two is that much better. Maybe they get marginally better, but I think Clemson does get the win at home versus North Carolina. I think it's a 2-score win against North Carolina. I don't think this game is in question for a large portion of the game.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Again, this is a situation in North Carolina that I think I guess the sum of its parts is lesser. I'm not even going to try to reverse that phrase, but like on paper, this North Carolina coaching staff is really good. I mean, there's a lot of guys. It's a pretty large and formidable brain trust on that opposite sideline. In North Carolina, but the talent evaluation has been pretty lackluster. And obviously, last season was just a disaster. They just did not have very many good players. I don't know if that changed all that much this year. I do think the coaching has changed in a good way offensively. I think Bobby Petrino will offer a lot more than what they had last year. But I don't know. I still think that there's still a lot of questions. Offensive line, I don't think is still going to be very good. Don't think they have a whole lot of game changers, at receiver. I think Jordan Shipp is a good player, but, beyond that, I don't know. I really don't know what to expect there. You're starting and obviously the transfer from Maryland and Wisconsin, Billy Edwards, probably going to be, I think he's already been named the starter. Wasn't overly impressed from what I've seen from him at both stops, but he's probably better than Gio Lopez. So I think they'll be slightly better. I think they'll be slightly better on offense. So I'll give them credit for that. I think they'll be better on offense just because I think Bobby Petrino is one of the better offensive minds in the sport. I think he'll be able to create more opportunities than they had last year, but don't think it's going to be good enough to be all that much better than last year. And defensively, I think there's definitely more promise there. They have some guys that I think can play. They, returning one of the ACC's leading sack leaders from last season. They have some experience in the secondary, although a lot of it is from the portal. These guys that have played a good amount of football. So I don't know. North Carolina's pass rush could be fairly formidable. But beyond that, I don't know. I have a lot of questions, and I think their linebacker unit might be one of the worst in the ACC on paper right now. So I think Clemson should win this one handily, like they did last year, even with the and that was such a crazy game. I remember the Antonio Williams to TJ Moore, double pass to start the game. And that game was never competitive. I think it's more or less going to be about the same.
Yeah, I think so as well. I don't think this game will really ever be in question against North Carolina, which is good for the Clemson Tigers. You start the season 2-1, feeling a little bit better about yourself. But Jordan, here comes the first track game of the year, Friday, September 25th. You got to fly clear across the country to go play Cal on a short week. This has trap game, upset, whatever you want to call it, written all over it, right? Crazy things happen in the ACC in road games. It happens all the time. I hate these Friday night games, period. This one sets up a little bit more worrisome than some of the others. Again, you'll be coming off of a short week, albeit I think a confidence boost against North Carolina. Your body clock management is going to be a thing here, right? Managing that late start. This thing is going to kick off at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. So you're essentially starting a football game when essentially you're used to ending your football games. So that's going to be kind of a different animal for Clemson to deal with. Plus, the first time they're kind of traveling to the West Coast, this will be the first time that they kind of deal with those sort of logistics. How is that going to work out? I think that factors into this game a ton. Obviously, keys for Cal, they got that quarterback, right? They feel really good about him. He's a difference maker. He's a baller out on the field. Clemson's secondary will be tested in this game. We'll see if they're up for the challenge. Turnover margin, obviously, always a factor, but I think the real factor in this game is Cal's quarterback, our secondary, and then the trip over to the West Coast. Friday night, short week, 10:30 kickoff. I mean, there's a lot of external factors before you talk about on-the-field factors contributing to this game. Jordan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the trickier games on the schedule just because of the short turnaround and just the understanding that, I mean, one, this is the first time Clemson has gone on the road to play either one of the Cal schools, so you don't really know what how that's going to affect them, travel wise. But it's a really rough spot against one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country. And when you look at the optics of this game, I don't think many people outside the ACC are really looking at this one too closely. But when you know the history of Clemson and their history with these type of games, going on the road, honestly, I think the closest example that we can point to is Syracuse, and just knowing how Clemson has fared when they've traveled up there in recent years. It's always a game where it's you're going to get more than what you bargained for, and that's what I think you're in for with Cal. Now, Cal does this is a first year coaching staff. They brought in Tosh Lapoy. And I think he's one of the best recruiters in all of college football. That's something that he's really just been consistently known for at his various spots, various stops throughout his career. But this is his first opportunity really running a major program, and I don't know how he's going to handle that. He's got a lot of talent that he's brought in through the portal. This is a very transfer heavy Cal team, because they wanted to make sure they had pieces around JKS. But at the same time, Cal has a very short amount of time to have these pieces gel too. So it's going to be a unique spot for both teams from that respect. But Clemson, from a Clemson standpoint, I mean, I think this is one of the must-win games, on the schedule. Because I think ultimately that's going to tell us a lot about this team and honestly what their prospects are for the rest of the year. If they go on the road at Cal and lose,
I think that would set up for maybe a tumble down the different parts of this schedule. But again, it like you say, Jordan, I think this is a must-game win for the Clemson Tigers. I don't think this is going to be a particularly pretty game, right? I think all of the travel complications and the late start and it being a short week, I think it lends itself to a game that is maybe sluggish or clunky, or there's some turnovers or there's some mistakes, and it's just like, what are we doing, guys? But I do think ultimately Clemson will pull out a W against Cal. Like I said, I think it'll be a sluggish game. I think it'll be a game riddled with a lot of mistakes. But I think you get out of there with a win. And I think that's important. You can improve from those mistakes. You can take it going forward. What you can't do is lose this game and then immediately have to turn around and and play Miami. So I think Clemson gets out of there with a win and starts the first month of the season 3-1.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think Cal is obviously the offense. I think is going to be pretty scary. They did a good job of putting pieces around Jaron Kiowa, oh God, I almost had it. I've been practicing Sagapolo-Tele. Jaron Kiowa, Sagapolo-Tele. There we go. I got it. They've done a good job of putting pieces around him. I think the big question for them is whether or not he'll be protected, because he did take a lot of sacks last year. And so they did I think they did what they could to try to revamp that offensive line. But the pass catchers are good. And so I think that's going to be, he's going to be a high volume guy as far as passing. I think they're going to lean on that, lean on his arm talent. He makes things happen. I don't think this defense is very good. And I think that's where Clemson will have their opportunities. I don't think they retooled very well on defense. I don't think they're going to be all that special. So I think that's where Clemson gets its opportunities. I think I'm not sure if it's again, I don't know if that's necessarily going to translate on the scoreboard, but I think it means Clemson makes enough plays in a sort of in a weird spot to pull out a W there.
Absolutely. All right. So through the first month of the season, we are both at 3-1 for the Clemson Tigers, with wins over North Carolina, California, and Georgia Southern, and a loss to LSU. Heading into the second month of the season, you got a heavyweight right out of the gate, Jordan. October 3rd versus Miami. This is a home game for the Clemson Tigers. Miami is one of those teams that preseason have been really hyped up, and for good reason. They made some big moves through the offseason. They essentially stole Duke's entire offensive production and paid them to come to Miami to play football. So shout out to them for that. So they got themselves yet another surprise, yet another transfer quarterback for the Miami Hurricanes. I think they got themselves a good one. Plus, they added his favorite target from Duke. Oh, and you still got all the targets from you still got Tony from Miami. So I mean, no shortage of playmakers there for the Miami Hurricanes. They are replacing some significant pieces along that defensive line. Obviously anchored by Ruben Bain. But again, they recruit at a really high elite level. This is going to be a massive heavyweight clash, right? This is going to be the third ACC game for the Clemson Tigers. And it's going to be a tough one, right? Miami's going to come in there looking to kind of repeat what they did last year. They're going to try to repeat their success that they had last season and kind of build off of that. This is a team that is being routinely picked to win the ACC and ultimately end up in the college football playoffs, and we'll see what happens there. But this is going to be a huge game for the Clemson Tigers. I think it'll be a crazy atmosphere in Clemson. It's going to be a high-intensity home thriller. I think Miami's going to have a really explosive offense. They got tons of stars, time of possession. Pressure on the quarterback is going to be an issue. Are you able to kind of limit those explosive plays, which is something Clemson wasn't able to do a lot last season? How's your front seven looking at this point in time in the season, right? We've talked about concerns about defensive tackle room. Has that kind of rounded into form? Same thing with kind of the linebacker crew. So, Jordan, your thoughts on this massive Miami game, fifth game of the season. This is going to be a great atmosphere in Clemson, South Carolina. It's going to be a massive game. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But this is a heck of a team coming to Clemson, man. This Miami team is legit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think this is the best team on your schedule on paper right now. And for good reason. Miami is the odds-on favorite to win the ACC. For good reason with what they've done in the recruiting, on the recruiting trail, but also in the transfer portal. obviously the headliner being Darian Mensah, them poaching them away from Duke was one of the biggest moves of the offseason. And obviously a very familiar face for Clemson fans when you think of the game against Duke last year. So there's a lot to like about this Miami team. They lost pieces on defense that I think they'll have to address, but they're still extremely loaded. That defensive line, they brought back a good amount of talent despite losing their top two guys. So I think this defense is going to be strong again. The pass catchers are going to be probably the best in the might be the best in the ACC. I'd have a conversation with Clemson. I think Clemson and Miami are definitely the top two as far as pass catchers in the ACC. And they brought in Cooper Barcade, Darian Mensah's wide receiver from Duke.
Yeah. We saw what those two did to us last year.
God, man. Good. Don't remind me. But they're also bringing back one of the most exciting receivers in all of college football, in Malachi Toney. So I mean, you couple that, like that's a tough
running back who just completely turned into an animal in the postseason.
Yeah. Mark Fletcher, 1,000-yard. It feels like he's been there forever. It's like
I wish he wasn't there.
Yeah, very, very much so. This is a very formidable Miami team with not a lot of obvious weaknesses. And Clemson will be an underdog in this game, and for good reason. The opportunities that Clemson, I think, will have in this game. One, it's at the end of the day, what we've seen from Miami under Mario Cristobal has shown that they are good for losing a game that they shouldn't, or they quote unquote shouldn't, or a game that they're expected to win, but they don't. And two, you're at home. Like, I think those are the best things going for you in this game. Because on paper, when you look at the team side by side, I think Miami has it's not an overwhelming advantage, but it's a fairly clear advantage, I would say, at this moment in time. And that makes it tough, to talk yourself into a Clemson win here. And part of me, when I was going into it, was like, you know what? I said that Miami always has a game they slip up in, and why can't Clemson be that team?
Yep.
But my better judgment is telling me, I think it's too ambitious for this team with kind of where they are roster wise to feel like, I'm just going to go ahead and outright pick them to upset Miami. I think Clemson could win this game for those reasons, but I'm not going to pick them. I think Miami wins in Clemson. Unfortunately, don't like losing at home, but Clemson drops its first home game.
Hate losing at home, but Clemson's got to start winning these home games for it to be for it to feel like Death Valley again. For it to feel like a place where people don't just come in and win. But I do think it would not surprise me. Like, I wouldn't be like Joel and Floor utterly shocked if Clemson pulled the upset here and beat Miami. They're not supposed to win this game. They won't be picked to win this game. They'll probably be significant underdog in this game, regardless of if we are correct and they are 3-1 heading into this game. It will not matter. Miami will be a favorite in this game regardless. You talk about all the playmakers that Miami has. I think this game's got the recipe for fireworks, some explosive plays made by both teams. I think Clemson makes it a game early. I think it's close for a while, but I ultimately do think that Clemson will fall to the Miami Hurricanes at home in Death Valley. Unfortunately, as painful as that is to say, I just cannot pick Clemson here. I'm not ready to take it to that level. I'm not that optimistic on them this year. I do think there will be an improvement from the 7-6 record, but I'm not ready to say that they're going to beat the toughest ACC opponent that they will face all season. So I'm going to go with an L here opening up October with a loss is not ideal, but it is what it is. You're sitting at 3-2, according to me, heading into the second week of October.
Yep, I think that's pretty fair, and we're in alignment so far. So,
all right, so 3-2 heading into the first bye week for the Clemson Tigers. This bye week comes at a perfect time, Jordan. You've went through 5 weeks of the season. You've had 2 of your toughest games so far. We're predicting they lose both of those tough games. So I don't think it's a surprise to anyone of the record that we're sitting here at 3-2. I think that's probably the most likely record for the Clemson Tigers heading into the first bye week of the season. You get to heal up, right? Get ready, heal up some of that soft tissue injuries, get a little bit healthy, kind of regroup and reevaluate. This will be, the first 5 weeks with a new offensive coordinator and Chad Morris. Are there tweaks to the offense that needs to happen? Is there position changes that need to happen at significant positions? I know a lot of people talking about quarterback and when that potential change could be made if it is made. How's everything looking? So this is kind of a good point in the season to kind of just reevaluate and try to get healthy.
Yeah, very much so. This would be a nice inflection, especially, just kind of look at how did these 5 games go, and the games you lost, why did you lose them? What changes need to be made? Because, hey, listen, if you're 3-2, but Chris Vezina has looked good, then don't make a change at quarterback. I mean, you keep it rocking. Yeah. But obviously, if things just aren't clicking, things aren't looking good, and just the offense is kind of sputtering, and you're not getting what you thought you would, then this would be a good time to make a change if you're not gonna do it within the first 5 games. So this would be a good opportunity, and regardless, even if Chris Vezina is playing well, this is a great opportunity to just see what you have. The guys behind him obviously Tate Reynolds, but even the other guys. So I think it's a good opportunity, just kind of to reset and get ready for the back half of the schedule.
All right. So you're coming out of your first bye week. Again, this is a good thing for the Clemson Tigers because next on the schedule is October 17th, Charleston Southern, another home game for the Clemson Tigers. Been on a home stint since that Cal game. So back-to-back home games for the Clemson Tigers. This is good, particularly, Jordan, because in recent history, Clemson has not done well coming off of bye weeks. They've traditionally struggled. It's always a sluggish game. It's always like, bro, what have we been doing for a week? Like, did we forget how to play football in the week that we were off? So you walk into your midseason FCS opponent. Should be no issues here for the Tigers. Should be a pretty decisive win for the Clemson Tigers. Should get a lot of players in. A lot of guys should get burned. Empty the benches. Get your backups in. Don't get anybody hurt. Kind of a tune-up out of that. Out of the first month of the season. Out of your bye week. This is kind of a nice tune-up game before you get into a big chunk of that ACC play.
Yep. I think that, another tune-up game. Not really much else to say there.
Easy win for the Tigers. I mean, it's Charleston Southern.
Yeah. Although last time Clemson played Charleston Southern, they were up 14-7. Early in that game after a kick return. What was it? A kick return for a touchdown, and then Kay Klubnik threw a pick 6 late in the first quarter. So. Was that 20? That was 2023, I guess. Good times. So let's hope for the no shenanigans this time around. And I think Clemson ultimately won that game like 50 like they scored like 50 points in that game, or so. But you get what I mean.
Absolutely. All right. So Clemson is now 4-2 on the season, heading into the October 24th matchup against the Virginia Tech Hokies. Again, another home game for the Clemson Tigers. Virginia Tech welcoming new coach James Franklin, who previously got fired midseason at Penn State last year. I think he's a great fit for the Virginia Tech fan base for that area. I think he's really going to do well there. I don't know if that's going to be an immediate thing in year one. There's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of building that I think has to go on there. But again, I think they did hire a really good coach. Homecoming weekend, Virginia, it's going to be a physical game, right? That's on brand for James Franklin. There's a lot of newness there at Virginia Tech, so you don't exactly know what you're going to be getting. But this is going to be, I think, yet another win for the Clemson Tigers. I don't think Virginia Tech I don't think James Franklin is going to have that immediate success at Virginia Tech. I do think they are going to build to the future, but I think this is a win for the Clemson Tigers. I think they get it done at home, homecoming, another dub for the Clemson Tigers.
Yep. I think I am with you, although I do have my reservations, just because, first year coaching staff, but I do think James Franklin will ultimately be pretty successful there. Like you said, for all the reasons that you mentioned, I think it's a good fit. Wouldn't surprise me if Virginia Tech mucked this game up a little bit, made it a little ugly. But at the same time, I think you're at home, and I'm not overly impressed by what they, by everything they did. I think they'll be better defensively, especially in the secondary, than they were last year. But offensively, I think they'll just be okay. You see a familiar face in Ethan Grunkenmeyer, who they did beat you. He did beat you as the quarterback of Penn State in the Pinstripe Bowl, but I don't know. I'm not overly impressed with this Virginia Tech roster in year one. I think that will change very quickly.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I think Clemson has the advantage here. I think they get the dub.
Yeah, I think they get the dub. Again, I think James Franklin's going to be great for Virginia Tech, unfortunately. But I just don't think it's going to be year one. So I think Clemson gets another ACC win there. They will now be, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5-2.
5-2.
5-2 on the season. Heading into another ACC matchup. This one's going to be on the road, Jordan. A spooky game down in Tallahassee, Florida, Doak Campbell Stadium, taking on the Florida State Seminoles on Halloween. Are they going to put some voodoo on us, Jordan, and get are we going to lose a road game down in Tallahassee? I don't know. Will they have a head coach at this point? I don't know. That's another question. Can their coach survive yet another season? There's a ton of crazy stuff here. I mean, Florida State is at the point where it seems that they are just kind of waiting for the buyout to go low enough to make a change at head coach. And it's just a weird vibe for me at Florida State right now. Now, again, Doak Campbell is a great atmosphere. I'm sure those fans will be jacked up on Halloween. But it just feels, I don't know, man, like just the vibe surrounding that coaching staff. Like it just feels like dead man walking, right? So your thoughts on Florida State, Jordan?
Yeah, this is an interesting game for a lot of reasons. It's kind of an awkward situation down there right now in Tallahassee, because you basically have a zombie regime.
Yeah, Mike Norvell is just like, so you guys want me to keep coming to work, or like?
Yeah, it's very strange how that whole situation is unfolding. But I will say, the more the more I've looked at this Florida State roster, the more
they're talented, dude.
Yeah, I think they're this is actually going to be a pretty good team.
They're talented.
I'm not a huge fan of Ashton Daniels. Those of you that have been watching, I don't think he's that good. But I do think in this offense, I think they're still going to largely run what Gus Malzahn ran, despite him being retired. I do think in that style of offense, he fits really well. And I think the talent they have, especially at the receiver position, this is one of the better receiver rooms in the ACC. Led by Deuce Robinson, obviously their big play threat. I think they're going to use him a lot more often as in the shorter to intermediate passing game than they did last year. They mostly used him as a high point 50-50 ball guy. I think in this offense they'll I guess in year two of the sort of Malzahn experience. I think they'll try to use him in a little bit more different ways. But it's not just him. They got Mekhi Danzy, one of the fastest players in all of college football, had some really, really nice moments last year. I think this Florida State offense is pretty good. And that's why I think I'm a little bit uncomfortable about this game, if I'm being honest with you.
Oh, I'm with you. I was kind of clowning on Florida State in the beginning with the Mike Norvell and Dead Man Walking stuff. But this, like, to your point, Jordan, like this is a very talented team with some playmakers. Doak Campbell Stadium, October 31st, Halloween, spooky game. I think Clemson loses, Jordan.
I do too.
I think they drop a road game in Tallahassee, which is crazy because in the offseason, or earlier in the offseason, like in spring, like I would have been like, yeah, no, that's a win, no doubt.
Yeah.
But yeah, the more I look at it, like you, Jordan, I get a little nervous about it. Spooky Halloween game. Regardless of whether Mike Norvell's there or not, I think this is a talented team. Like we've seen kind of coaches get fired early in season, and there's an interim that steps in, and the team like takes off, right? So yeah, I think for a lot of reasons that you pointed out, I think Clemson's going to take an L right here in Tallahassee on Halloween night for their third loss of the season.
I think I'm with you. And just I think when you think about where this game falls on the schedule, this is, and I mentioned Ashton Daniels, especially because this is really the first game that you play a mobile quarterback,
right?
Like a truly mobile, like dual, like a guy like flat out can run. Yeah. Like you've got some guys that are decent athletes on the schedule at quarterback, before that, but this is the first true like running threat at quarterback that you're going to play all season. I'm not sure how this group is going to respond to that for the first time, right. in the 8th game of the year. I've got my questions there, and I like Florida State's running back situation. I think they've got some really good backs. They not overly impressed at tight end, and the offensive line certainly has some questions, but within that scheme, they're going to scheme around it. And again, I really do like their skill talent. Defensively, I think they'll be pretty competent, and that makes me nervous. I'm not gonna hold you. That makes me nervous. I think Clemson drops this one. This will be their first loss in Doak Campbell since 2014. Can you believe it? If this were to happen, their first loss.
If we're correct, I hope we're not. I hope we win every game this season. I just can't pick us to win every game. And the more I look at this game, I just think Clemson's gonna. I think they're gonna drop a close one in Tallahassee. But we'll see if we're correct. All right. According to us, Jordan, Clemson currently sits at 5-3, heading into month 3 of the college football season, the stretch run. What does Dabo like to call November? Championship phase or whatever. He breaks the season into phases. But month 3 of the college football season, the stretch run, rivalry weekends coming up. But we take on Syracuse, November 7th. We travel up to the JMA Wireless Dome, a.k.a. what I will always refer to as the Carrier Dome, up in Syracuse, New York. those of you that have never been to the Carrier Dome or the JMA Wireless Dome, whatever you call it, that's a crazy place to play. And it's a place that Clemson has traditionally struggled at. It's always been some crazy games. It gets insanely loud in that place. I've been to a few Clemson games there back when I lived up there, and it's kind of a unique environment. I don't really quite know how to explain it, but this is a game that we lost last year, right? Syracuse came into town. It was the last game that Syracuse won last season, but they came right down to Death Valley and carved us up. And it was a tough game, Jordan. It was a tough game. It was bad. I think a fast start is going to be key to Clemson kind of getting the momentum started in this game. Get out to a lead early, kind of quiet that crowd. I told you that it gets kind of loud in that stadium. I don't think Syracuse is going to be a particularly great football team this season. I think Clemson goes up there, they get their get back in a nice road ACC win coming off of that tough loss to FSU. So I think they kind of bounce back here. They go up to Syracuse, New York. They take care of business and get their get back for that horrible loss in Death Valley last year.
Yeah, that was probably just objectively the worst loss of the season last year. Not just the quality of team you lost to, but how you played in it. You were at home and got basically punked until the game was out of reach. That was pretty disgusting. Very few games, like as bad as last year was, very few games have had me in disgust like that Syracuse game did. Like that, like they just didn't show up. That was one of the just the most blatant lack of effort I think I've ever seen, at least from a Dabo Swinney football team. That was atrocious. Yeah, I don't think that happens. I don't think that happens again this year. Syracuse. I think they kind of suck. I'm going to be honest with you, but I do, they do bring back Steve Angeli coming off of an injury. I don't know how well he's going to effective he's going to be. He was
they
leading
lost playmakers too, though, man. Like
they don't have a whole lot of they didn't really get him a lot of help. I don't think that this roster.
Shout out to Fran Brown. He's an okay guy, but I don't think they're going to be good this year.
No. And so I think the best Steve Angeli is the best part of that offense. But I don't. He was. People forget he was leading the nation in passing before he got hurt in that game last year. But like I don't think they have much for him to work with. And again, I think Clemson's defense in year 2 will certainly play with a lot more fire, intensity, and effort than last year's group did under Tom Allen. So, I think Clemson wins, gets a bounce back win after a tough loss in Doak.
All right, we are sitting at 6-3 on the season, heading into November 14th matchup versus the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. They got to come to Death Valley, South Carolina this year. This was a heartbreaking game last year, man. This was a tough loss last year for the Clemson Tigers. That walk-off field goal was just a brutal blow to the Clemson Tiger season. Tough loss, hard to swallow. But again, they come into Death Valley, kind of a mid-November game. This is kind of where your depth kind of gets tested. A lot of times, you probably got a couple injuries piling up at this point. How's each team's health looking? Georgia Tech is a team replacing a lot. Obviously, they're replacing their offensive coordinator who left. They're replacing their quarterback in Haynes King, who graduated, and then also Philo, their backup quarterback, who exited along with the offensive coordinator. They do have a great running back duo. I think that's probably the strength of this team, but they are replacing a lot of pieces. And I think Clemson is going to, again, get their get back on Georgia Tech as well. So back-to-back get back games in the Valley. Clemson gets a dub against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, this is a game. I mean, with Brent Key, I mean, you always have to be wary. But again, this Georgia Tech team lost a lot. This is a very, very young roster at this point. New offensive coordinator, new starting quarterback, and Alberto Mendoza. Just a lot of new pieces. I mean, I like some of the talent that they brought in the portal. Receiver, like they've done a good job there, but I've got my questions. You can always expect Brent Key team to try to run the football. If they run the football well, this game could get really pretty uncomfortable. But I don't know. Again, this is a much different team than last year, and obviously the experience and the continuity they had with Haynes King. I don't think that can be taken for granted because he was there pretty a good while, pretty much really the entire time, Brent Key's entire coaching tenure. So he's breaking in a new quarterback for the first time. So I don't know how he's going to respond to that. I don't know how that's going to play out. So we'll kind of see. This could be a game. Georgia Tech could be one of those teams that is pretty competitive again. But I could also see a world where they're just not very good in a retooling year. So I think Clemson wins. I don't feel too strongly about it one way or the other right now, just because I think Georgia Tech has they in particular have a lot of unknowns. So we'll kind of see how it goes. Again, they're going to be well coached. That's the thing. They're going to be a well coached football team. I just don't know how good they're going to be, and I don't know how how many good enough players they'll have to be able to win this football game.
All right, we got Clemson at 7-3 heading into the Duke game, November 20th, up in Durham, North Carolina, Wallace Wade Stadium. We got another Friday night game, Jordan. How did we end up with 2 Friday night ACC games? What did we do? Oh, that's right. We sued the ACC. That's what we did. It's another short week for the Clemson Tigers coming off of that win against Georgia Tech. This is a Duke team that's kind of replacing quite a bit, just like Georgia Tech, right? Replacing a quarterback, replacing their leading receiver. Had a lot of pieces exit basically their entire offensive production. Unfortunately for them, headed out to Miami to play football over there. So missing a lot from there. This is a game where we got eaten up. Our defense just got absolutely carved up. That's not going to be the same offense that Duke trots out onto the field this season. Clemson's going to get a W in Durham, North Carolina. Jordan, your thoughts on Duke?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that was so interesting about this Duke team, defending ACC champions, by the way, without I point that out, is that as potent as they were on offense, they were pretty awful defensively a lot of the year, which is just weird to say about a Manny Diaz coach team. They were not very good. And Clemson's offense wasn't particularly good, and they put up 45. I mean, if that tells you anything. So
yeah, you got a bad defense when Clemson scores 45 on you last year.
Yeah. So I mean, it was pretty shocking just to see a Manny Diaz team struggle that much. They had to bring in a ton of transfers for obvious reasons, and they obviously replacing their top quarterback, their top receiver. Replacing coordinators. It's a whole new group of faces for this Duke team, and I'm not really sure how they're going to handle it. They do return their running back Shepard. I think he's a good player. Ran for over 1,000 yards last year, but there's a lot of questions, and I think they'll be better defensively because it's hard to be worse. But I'm not sure this roster is quite there to contend again. I say they're probably a middle of the pack ACC team, and if that defense doesn't get better, they could be worse. So I like Clemson here, going on the road, and breaking a two game losing streak to Duke. Just hard to stomach thinking about that. So yeah, that's a streak I'd like to end.
Oh my God!
I think Duke is the only ACC team that has a current multi-game win streak on Clemson right now. So that's
so sad, dude.
Yeah, that's not great. Come on, guys. Let's
Come on, man.
Let's correct that one.
All right, so I stand corrected. We got 3 get-back games in a row. Syracuse, Georgia Tech, and Duke.
Yeah.
3 back-to-back get-back games for the Clemson Tigers. They better get it done. I got them at 8-3 through the Duke game, Jordan.
I do too. So we're pretty much in lock. We've been in lockstep. We've picked the same wins and the same losses. We did not talk this over before the show, guys. So I promise you.
For those of you that think we came together and like got on the same, that's not the case. But heading into rivalry weekend, Jordan, last game of the season, November 28th, or last regular season game, if you win enough to go to the postseason. November 28th versus South Carolina. They come to Death Valley, South Carolina. Home game for the Clemson Tigers. This has been a really annoying series as of late, Jordan. We cannot win. The home team can't win in this series.
No.
That's kind of been the trend that's happening. Is Clemson capable of breaking that trend this season? Obviously, South Carolina has had the injury bug in fall camp already. I'd like to say I feel sorry for them, but I don't. I do feel sorry for those players. I don't ever want to see anybody get hurt. But massive regular season finale, right? Home game, rivalry weekend. The stakes couldn't be bigger, right? You're feeling pretty good coming into this game. You're 8-3. Last time they came into your house and beat you, you haven't been able to win this game at home in quite some time. It's time to kind of turn the corner for the Clemson Tigers. It's time to get back in the win column when it comes to South Carolina. Jordan, your thoughts on the chickens from Columbia?
The chickens from Columbia. Yes, the big rivalry game. The one that we all look forward to every single year.
That's right.
When you look at the South Carolina team, obviously the success of their season is going to ride on Lenore Sellers in year 4, putting it all together. It's just it is what it is. That's the fact of the matter. They brought in Kendall Briles to run the offense there. I do think that was a good addition. I think their offense will be better than it was last year.
Sure.
They have some pieces to work with at receiver. I think the big question for them ultimately is going to be running the football in that offensive line. They just have – that's been a consistent theme the last couple of seasons for them. They've really struggled in that department. Definitely think Lenore Sellers will be more of a factor with his legs than he was last year. And so that's something that Clemson is – they're going to make sure
that's scary. That was kind of one of the things last year that helped Clemson was he was not a factor with his legs.
Nope.
Which was the exact opposite the year before, which killed us. So
very much so. But yeah, in order to break the streak, you gotta contain him first and foremost. You gotta hope that they don't. If Nick Harbor ever learns how to run routes, he'd be a very good football player. So like if he figures how to do that this year, that could be scary.
Yeah, that's not gonna be good.
Yeah, but in defensively, I think they're going to be really strong again. They bring back Dylan Stewart, although he's one of the guys dealing with injuries right now. But if he's healthy, one of the best players in college football. They've got some talent at the second level. But when you look at the roster as a whole, I don't know. They're banking on a lot of young guys and a lot of pieces to kind of step up that they, we just haven't seen much from. And again, I think the biggest thing is, are they going to be able to protect Lenoris? And they just have not in his time there, they have not been able to. He took a ton of sacks last year. Did not have a lot of time to throw. Receivers didn't always catch the football. And I think Mike Shula's offense just was not very good. It was not a good fit. So
it was not a fit at all.
So yeah, I think for Clemson, the biggest thing is, not hurting yourself, because I mean, you talk about the road team, winning these games. When Clemson has been when Clemson has lost at home in this series, it's all, both games, it's felt like, okay, Clemson kind of, there were a lot of opportunities they missed. And yeah, you could say that about any team, but Clemson in particular, it felt like just the worst things had to go wrong. I mean, 2022, I mean, when your quarterback goes 8 for 29, like, you're not going to win many football games. Like 8 for 29 for 99 yards was DJ Uiagalelei's stat line.
What a stat line, dude.
I mean,
Won't you miss those days?
Yeah, I mean, you fumble a punt at the end of the game. Obviously, that was the biggest one. But
you mean the ring around the Rosie?
Yeah, the ring around the Rosie after the safety. Just
what were we doing?
Just a multitude of errors. I mean, going away. You were running the football all over them with Will Shipley. Like, that game felt like that should have been a win that you just lost, and kind of blew at the end. And then, 2024, I mean, you're up 14-7 in the fourth quarter, and you give up, 10 unanswered. You give up a 4th and 16 or 3rd and 16, excuse me. And they, to give up the game winning touchdown. And then, you're driving down the field, getting ready to, with a chance to win the football game, and you throw a pass that's late and behind and gets tipped and intercepted, like, in a game that you largely led and were the better team in for most of the game. Defensively, you all of a sudden you just forgot, Lenore Sellers is good at running the football, and all of a sudden you couldn't stop him. Just a very, very, very frustrating 2 games. And then when Clemson has been the road team, it's been pretty dominant. I mean, 2021 was, what was it, 30-0? Like, it wasn't even close. And then in 2023, I mean, you won by 9 points. You outgained them by a ton of yards. You just didn't get in the end zone, other than the scoop and score. So when Clemson has won this in this series, they've won in pretty dominating fashion. And then I mentioned last year, did the same thing. You win by 2 scores. You led the whole game pretty much, and in the end, you were able to move the ball way more consistently than South Carolina was, and the defense really stepped up and contained them, and you won fairly comfortably. So, I mean, to break the trend, you got to bring what you've brought on the road back home. That's really what it comes down to. I think Clemson is the better team in this game, but you can't make the mental mistakes that you've made the last 2 times you've lost to this team.
Right.
So that was pretty long-winded, but I think Clemson wins this game.
I do as well. I think we finally get back in the win column at Death Valley against the South Carolina Gamecocks. 9-3 is my prediction for the Clemson Tigers as far as the regular season goes in 2026. We'll see what that means as far as postseason. But that's where I have it, folks. 9-3 with losses to LSU, Miami, and Florida State.
And you basically spoke for me, because we have the exact same record with the exact same losses. So we are in
the comments. Let us know what's your record prediction, and who are those losses to specifically. So don't just, you can give us a record prediction, 9-3, 10-2, 7-5, whatever. But just tell us who the losses are to. So make sure you guys get in the comment section below. But there you have it. Our much anticipated preview and schedule prediction, Jordan. It's in the books. We both got the Clemson Tigers at 9-3. I hope we're right for all 9 of those games, and I hope we're wrong for all 3 of those games.
Yeah.
I could go with a smooth 12-0. That'd be nice.
Yes.
Not going to happen, but one can dream.
One can, and listen, guys, these are our preseason predictions when we when we're in the season. And
I'm not holding fast to these.
Yes, like when the games are being played,
right.
We will reevaluate our thoughts on this team, for better or for worse. So like if Clemson, okay, Clemson is better than we thought. Okay, I may not pick a Clemson to lose the Miami game if like they blow out LSU or something like that.
Right.
If I just for argument's sake, but and then at the same time, if Clemson goes on the road and loses to Cal, okay, I'm reevaluating some of these other games on the schedule.
Right. Exactly.
So like it's one of those things. Especially since it's always interesting, when we do these, because it's like, am I going to remember how I felt about this team in the preseason if this team is better or considerably better or worse than I expected? Maybe not.
I can guarantee you I won't remember.
Yeah, I won't. I will not be revisiting this. You guys can hold us accountable.
I will not revisit this. You guys will have to remind us what we said when we change our minds inevitably during the season.
Yeah.
But you're more than welcome to call us out and let us know what we said in this video. But Jordan, before we move on from the schedule preview and prediction, let's do a ceiling and a floor according to us for this team. So if everything goes off the rails, goes sideways, what's the floor for this team? And then flip side of that, if everything goes great, what is the absolute ceiling you can see for this Clemson Tiger team in 2026?
Yeah, I'm gonna start with the floor. Everybody likes to talk about the floor. It's like how bad can it get? Hey, the floor is fairly low, I think, for this team. There is a world where this team is not particularly good, where they lose 5-6 games. I'd say 6-6 is the floor for this team.
I agree.
If both quarterbacks suck, if the depth concerns you have on the defensive line or a defensive tackle show up, if the offensive line just does not gel,
secondary doesn't work out,
yeah.
If you're playing musical chairs along the offensive line like you have in seasons past, I think 6-6 is definitely a very real possibility if things go sideways.
Yeah. I think so. This team has the opportunity to not be very good. Again, I think this is on the worst of circumstances play out. I think this is still a bowl team, but I don't think anybody's going to be happy with 6-6, and rightfully so. That would be a very highly disappointing year again, and we're having some really uncomfortable conversations. I don't think this is what's going to happen, but I could see it happening especially if both quarterbacks just aren't playable. So we'll go with that. And then ceiling for this team, if things go right, if the Chad Morris offense really kind of takes off, I think the most realistic. I don't think there's too many teams on this schedule that are flat out better rosters than Clemson. Honestly, I think maybe 2, but definitely not more than 2. But I think the 2 toughest games they play are winnable. They're not going to be favored to win, and they shouldn't be favored to win, but they're winnable. I'll say the realistic ceiling for this team, I think, is 11-1. If this team just really puts it all together, and they hit the ground running, they have it figured out at quarterback, the offense takes off, the improvements on defense show, that is in the realm of possibility. I'm not picking this team to go 11-1. I think a lot of things have to go right for them, but it's not it wouldn't absolutely shock me, because I think the schedule is manageable if this team is they buy in and they perform at the level that they have the potential to.
Yeah, I think it's possible. 11-1, 10-2, somewhere in there, I think is my ceiling. This is a team that could really take off if this Chad Morris offense, like you said, really gels with this personnel. I mean, we got I know everybody's low on Clemson, and rightfully so. We've earned it. And I'm in a wait and see mode with Clemson as well, like every other logical fan out there. But this is not an untalented team. Like you said, there are two teams on this schedule that are more talented than Clemson, and that's LSU and Miami. Every other team, you are more talented than. Every other team. You have a talent advantage roster-wise on paper than every team other than LSU and Miami. So, if all the right buttons are pushed, you stay healthy, sure, you could go 10-2, 11-1, somewhere in there, right? So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Last question, Jordan, before we move on to the next segment. Out of the two most prominent games, right, being LSU and Miami, if you had to pick one that Clemson is more likely to win, which one would it be and why?
That one's always tough. And I've kind of gone back and forth. I feel like we might have been asked that maybe earlier in the offseason. I can't even remember what I said at this point because my thoughts have changed so much.
That's the beauty of it.
that is the beauty of it.
We just say whatever we're feeling in the moment.
Yeah, exactly. This one's tough. Part of me wants to say LSU, but it's difficult. I'll go with LSU. It's first game of the year. That's just where the most unknowns tend to happen. And
I think you're right.
LSU has more questions than Miami does from a roster standpoint.
Right, and it's an entire new coaching staff, basically an entire new roster. Things could not gel immediately, right? Like, what if LSU doesn't hit the ground running at 1,000 miles an hour like their fans think they're going to week one? Not that they're not going to be good. I think LSU is going to be a very good team, but I think they're going to be a better team in November than they are in September, right? Yeah. I think that's just the reality of it. So if you're picking one, I think you're right. I think it's LSU just because of the week one newness of it. Maybe you can sneak in there and steal one. There are arguments for the opposite, home game at the Valley. Miami tends to stumble on a game that they shouldn't, all of those things. So we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, guys, there you have it. 9-3 is me and Jordan's prediction for the Clemson Tigers in the regular season for the 2026 season. Make sure you guys are checking out the Voice of College Football merch. That's right. Voice of College Football has merch, Clemson merch. All the other channels have merch. All the other teams have merch. Go check it out, VOCFB-shop. That's VOCFB-shop. Or you can go to thevoiceofcollegefootball.com and click on the link that will take you to the merch page. So whatever way you want to do it, links in the description of this video. Go check it out, VOCFB-shop. Get yourself some Voice of College Football Clemson gear. Help support me and Jordan and what we do here on the channel.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, Jordan, we're going to temporarily leave football there for the time being and talk a little basketball. Dillon Hunter returns for his 5th season. The 5-5 positively impacted the Clemson Tigers on the hardwood. Your thoughts on Dillon Hunter's return to this team, what it means for this Clemson basketball team? I think Brad Brownell did a really good job in the offseason of kind of rebuilding this roster via the transfer portal. Yet again, I think he put a lot of good pieces together. But I think the return of Dillon Hunter is a really good thing for this team. What are your thoughts?
It's massive. I think it's a really great get for Brad Brownell and co. Obviously just bringing that experience back in the guard room with the talent you already have in guys like Ace Buckner and Zach Foster, um, Harris Reynolds. This is a really talented group of guards that Clemson has this year, in one of the more talented guard rooms that I think Brad has had in a while. Um, and I think Dillon got some flack last year for some of the struggles down the stretch. Listen, I think the thing with Dillon Hunter is he was always at his best when he had guys around him that could create and score. And that was the thing about the team last year was they just didn't have guys that could go out there and score. It was kind of a different guy every night. And Dillon, his main role is to be a floor general, a facilitator, really good defender.
Yep.
But there were times where it's like, okay, well, there's nobody really there's not a Chase Hunter to make up for the the scoring output, or a Victor Lock-in on the interior. You didn't have that this year. And with Carter Welling going down, there just wasn't a whole lot of options there. When RJ Godfrey is your leading scorer, as much as I love RJ Godfrey, like it's not a guy that you should really be your number one guy, or your leading scorer in an ideal world. So it was just kind of whoever was hot that night was kind of what they did. It was scoring by committee, and Dillon just does not function well in those types of offenses. And there were times where they asked him to be the guy to put the load on his shoulders or take over a game, and that's just not really his game. He did well in the ACC tournament, but like that's just not him. But now I think you're in a situation, with Zach Foster recovering from his ACL surgery, where as well as Carter Welling. You're in a little bit of a better situation with the transfers you brought in, and I think guard play in general. I think that it'll kind of take some of the burden off of Dillon, and I think the Clemson fans that are detracting from this. Clemson had one spot, and they weren't getting anybody better than Dillon Hunter from the portal. They just weren't. Like this is objectively a positive for Clemson basketball, even if he doesn't start. Like even if he's like a mentor and he's just a leader for the younger guys, like an Ace Buckner, who's I'm very excited to see what his year 2 leap is. Like that means the world to have his senior leadership back on the roster for another year. I can't overstate that enough. So I'm really excited to have Dillon back. I think it only makes Clemson's team stronger. And again, like he understands Brad's system, and he's going to bring this group together. He's kind of the glue. And Clemson was always at its most efficient when he was on the floor, whether people like to admit that or not. He is a good basketball player, very smart basketball player, and it's big to have him back for a 5th year.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to the Clemson basketball team. Congratulations to Dillon Hunter. Glad he's back on the team. I think it'll be an overall huge net positive for the Clemson Tiger basketball team when they kick things off. All right, guys. Reminder of the Clemson schedule there. Me and Jordan had it at 9-3. Now you can go check out our friends over at FanDuel. And I think the over-under for Clemson's win total is at 7.5. So if you're with us and you think 9-3, or even you think 8-4, you can go put a little wager, have a little fun with it. Check out our friends over at FanDuel, plus all the latest and greatest for the upcoming Week 0 games. Maybe wager a couple bucks on those, make them interesting, give you a reason to watch. It's always fun. And we appreciate you guys going over and supporting the guys that support us, and that is FanDuel. This is the All-In Show presented by FanDuel. So go check them out. You will not regret it. And with that said, Jordan, it's time to turn it over to the people. This has been a lengthy show already.
Yes,
So I don't know how much longer we're going to hang out, but we can at least take a couple questions from the crowd, and then we'll get on out of here.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's wrap it up. Whew. The schedule prediction show is always it's always a big one.
A long one, yeah.
It very much always is a very big one. Josh Pate would say immunity at this point.
Immunity. Correct. Immunity.
Immunity. It's a very big show. Weirdos. All right. Let's see. All right. Let's see some of y'all's schedule predictions. Predictions. I sounded like a Discord moderator there. Predictions. That was weird. Boro says 10-2 losses to LSU or Miami and a fluke somewhere. I think that's possible. That I think anybody in the fan base would be extremely happy with 10-2.
Yeah, I mean that'd be a fantastic turnaround from 7-6, where you went 4-4 in the ACC play last year.
Air Mike, probably 9-3 as well, though I think one of the losses will be to Cal instead of FSU. And yeah, I think that's possible.
Yeah, certainly. That Cal game was a very, very losable game.
Yeah. Very, very losable, especially with where it falls on the schedule.
Yeah, where it falls, short week, cross-country travel, extremely late game, a 10:30 kickoff. Like, there's just...
Let's see. John says 6-6 floor. You on some stank weed? I don't think that's that far fetched. I don't think you can rule anything out. I don't know how anybody could rule a 6-6 season out with what we saw last year. I'm not saying this again. This is a different team, and you've made a lot of changes and a lot of changes that we like. But we really like the 2025 team too. We liked them a lot. We thought they were a playoff contender.
Yeah, a lot of people thought they were. They weren't.
No one thought 6-6 or 7-5, I guess, in the regular season was in the cards for that team until it was.
Correct.
So, but I think it's different. I've learned my lesson now. And again, it's not like the 6-6 floor thing is not coming from a place of like cynicism or like, I just have an understanding that this roster does not have the they don't have the sure things that we thought that Clemson had last year.
It's not like the Clemson of old where the floor was like 9-3.
Yeah. No, I mean because not only are you rating Clemson based off of the things you saw last year and what changes they've made, but also the teams they play and how they fare. I mean, it's just Clemson can't get the benefit of the doubt against some of the teams on the schedule that they would have gotten the benefit of the doubt on in years past. Like I can't just blindingly pick them to Virginia Tech or anyway, I shouldn't say Virginia Tech, but like Syracuse or North Carolina or Cal. Cal would be a bad example of teams they've played in the past, but you get what I'm saying. Georgia Tech. Like these are not games that you can just write down as sure things or say I don't see any way they lose that game. I just don't see many of those on Clemson's schedule this year, especially in the conference schedule. They could slip up to a number of those teams because we've seen it, and with all the new faces and that are on the coaching staff and on this roster, you have to leave yourself with the room with the possibility that hey, maybe it just doesn't work, maybe it doesn't gel. It's possible. If it doesn't, you're going to lose football games. You don't have the talent roster to make up for that anymore. Let's see who else. CJ says 9-3 losses to Miami, LSU, and Georgia Tech. Yeah, I could see that.
For sure.
Elsking 8-4 losses to LSU, Miami, Cal, and Duke. Or D-line gets worse as the season progresses, but the offense gets better. Okay, so he's
Duke 3 years in a row. Oh my god, I might have to riot.
Yeah.
Especially somebody else other than Duke.
Yeah, especially this version of Duke. I mean, the last couple of Duke teams you've lost to. I mean, I think that 2023 Duke was. Didn't they go 9-4? Like
yeah, I think so.
They were pretty solid. And then last year's Duke team, 9-5, won the ACC. So like, yeah, I mean, we have one of the better offenses in the league. Like that's. I don't think this year's Duke team is remotely close to those two. So if you lose to this version of Duke, you got some explaining to do. All right,
But it could very well.
It could very well happen. Because again, this team doesn't.
That's not a crazy prediction right there.
Yeah, Clemson doesn't get the benefit. You can't give them the benefit of the doubt like we used to. All right.
Yeah. And that's kind of the sobering part of like where we're at right now as a program is like you can't really look at anybody on that schedule minus like, you know, the Charleston Southerns and Georgia Southerns. Like you can't look at anybody on that schedule and like if someone were to pick anybody on our schedule minus those two, right, and say Clemson's going to lose that game, you can't really be like, well, that's crazy. That never happened. Like that's kind of where we're at.
Yep.
Which is not great. It's not a good feeling.
Nope. All right, let's do a couple more and then get out of here because this has been a marathon.
Yeah.
Bora asked, did you read the TI quarterback article this morning? Thoughts on this bad week and the battle being much closer than we thought? Yeah, I mean, I haven't, to be honest with you, I have not read the TI article. I have heard that, neither quarterback has played particularly well this past week. Scrimmage was not very good for the quarterbacks in particular, but has not been a great week of practice for the offense. They are holding a lot of guys. I do know that, as they get ready for the game, they don't want to put a lot of guys in harm's way and risk them getting injured. So always have to keep that in play. But again, this is a quarterback battle that is going to have ebbs and flows. One guy's going to have a really good week. Another guy might not have a great week. Both quarterbacks might have really good weeks, and then both quarterbacks might have bad weeks. I think as it stands right now, I still feel pretty confident that Christopher Vizina will be the starter. Now, again, I'm not ruling out the possibility of Tate Reynolds playing, but right now I feel pretty comfortable saying Chris Vizina is your starter.
Yeah, I mean, having a rough week or a tough scrimmage is one thing. It's the totality of it, of how they're going to make decisions. Chris Vizina will be your starter week one, no matter what, unless he gets hurt between now and game day.
Yuck. Air Mike says, you a Man City fan? Oh, no, I'm Man U fan. And yes, I hope the season goes well. I'm excited for next Saturday and even this weekend as well. Air Mike, you and I, we have we had a good thing going, and then you tell me that information. we can't be friends. It's over. No, I'm kidding. I did. Well, how'd you feel about that opener? And the whole city kind of they kind of played with y'all a little bit. That was pretty shocking. I'm not gonna hold you. I can't say I was too upset about it. But very weird game. Was not expecting Man U to look like that. It kind of got punked. But lots of games to be played. And I can't count. I mean, Clemson. Man City was this close to losing to Bournemouth. I think they play Crystal Palace on Friday, so that should be a win, but you never know. Sorry, this is the Clemson Tigers. This is the all-in show. This isn't the English Premier League show, but don't get many opportunities to talk about soccer on here. All right, let's do one more. Let's do one more Clemson question. We'll take it from John. He's the GOAT. The offensive line was bad, but when they stopped shifting every other down, we still had a quarterback making 65% of his throws and a running back with over 4 yards per with so little push in open lanes. Yeah, talking about last year. Yeah, I mean, last year's offense, wasn't all bad, and there were moments, very very fleeting moments, but like you said, with an offensive line that was struggling. So I mean that isn't positive. I mean, if this offensive line is even just slightly above average, obviously I think that would lead to more offensive success. When you couple that with you have a more experienced coordinator calling the shots now, that can only help for sure. So I mean, there's reasons to think this offense is would be considerably better, but at the same time, in the back of your head, it's like, well, but all of that is great, but still new quarterback, and you don't really know what you have in him until you see it, until he actually goes out there, because that's ultimately who it's going to fall on. All right, I think that's going to do it for us tonight, y'all. This was like I said, this is a marathon. I'm sure you guys can tell I'm starting to feel it, but this was a show that I'm sure a lot of you guys were anticipating. Hopefully, we didn't piss off too many of you with our predictions one way or the other. Some of you may say we're too optimistic. This team sucks, and we should be ashamed of ourselves for feeling this optimistic. We don't know what we're talking about. And then others may be like, you're ridiculous. This team is going to go 10-2, 11-1. This team is going to be a college football playoff contender. Just watch. By all means, I'm down for all of it. So, those of you that are on the Rewatch squad that obviously weren't able to participate in the live chat, put your predictions in the comment section below, and we'll be reading those just kind of and getting a kind of a gauge on how the fan base feels about this season.
Absolutely, man. There you have it. 9-3 regular season. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Hit that like button on the way out if you have not already. Obviously, subscribe if you have not. And we're into game week next week. So make sure, if you are not already, consider becoming a channel member. We're going to do game streams for all the channel members, stream the Clemson games for you this season. So if that's something you're interested in, consider becoming a channel member, supporting the show in that way, and getting that extra content. But with that said, guys, it's late. It's been a long one. You guys have a great rest of your week. Stay safe. Have fun watching Week 0 games. And as always, go Tigers.
Later, y'all.